I love it. You're muted, Robin. And Kevin, before we jump on, I hope you're feeling okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I believe I caught it on the road, just a little stomach bug, but thank you for the concern.
A lot of people have been.
Yeah,
You're not alone. Yeah.
I hear you. No, I've heard other stories. Thanks for your good wishes, John.
No, of course.
All right, so we are live streaming and recording, so we're ready whenever you are.
Blast off. Welcome to the May 28th, 2024 meeting of the Youth and Education Committee. My name is John DeRico, and I am chair of the committee. Tonight, we are joined by Community Coordinator Brian Lafferty. The meeting is called to order at 6:31 p.m. As a reminder, New York state law requires all committee members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. Roberto has very graciously volunteered to take minutes tonight. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to take attendance by roll call. Brian, if you could please conduct the roll call, that'd be great.
Sure. Committee members, I will call your name. When your name is called, please say present. I'll announce if there is a quorum. John DeRico,
Present.
thank you. Stu Desser,
Present.
thank you. John Keller,
Present.
thank you. Kevin O'Keefe,
Present.
thank you. Roberto Ruiz Melendez,
Present.
thank you. And Livia Shredler. I don't see Livia yet, but
I hear someone in the hallway, so I'm cautiously optimistic.
okay, we have a poll.
All right, the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the February 27th, 2024 meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the February 27th, 2024 meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CD6 website. Now we have the obligatory throat clearing ground rules, my favorite part. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will identify you so you can speak. Committee members unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom and I will identify you so you can speak. All committee members, it is extremely important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Tonight's agenda. We're going to start with a presentation from Assistant Commissioner Marnie Davidoff. Marnie, thank you so much for joining us. And before we jump in, I also just want to thank Robin, who is immensely helpful in setting up tonight's presentation. And I understand she has a few words to kick us off.
Thanks so much. I am really delighted that we were able to bring this group together. John as chair of the committee and Sandy, community board 6 chair, and also John Keller. And I spoke some time ago about the concerns that you as a community board had with the effects of social media on young people. As you know, the mayor announced an initiative, a lawsuit really against that. And we're very happy that the Commissioner Davidoff is here to address some of the issues and report to you on the progress, the status of the work that's being done by the city. So I congratulate you, Community Board 6, for taking on this project, and we will look forward to continue to work with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robin. Before we jump in, Marnie, I neglected to mention that Pauline Ferrante was immensely helpful in setting this up as well. So thank you, Pauline. Marnie, the floor is all yours. We're very eager to hear your presentation.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much all for inviting me. I really appreciate being here with you all tonight. And again, my name is Marnie Davidoff. I am the Assistant Commissioner for the Bureau of Children, Youth, and Families at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And I'm going to share some slides with you in just a moment that can provide just an overview of the issue, this relationship between social media use and youth mental health, and talk about some of the actions that the health department has been taking to address it. So bear with me for one moment while I bring up my slides. Okay, now is this, no, you're not seeing the appropriate screen, are you? You're seeing, let me see if I can get this into slideshow form.
You click from beginning.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Just okay, should be all good to go. Okay, so let me just start off with just a snapshot of what we are seeing right now with regard to youth mental health in New York City. The city really believes that some of the concerns we're seeing right now have been impacted by social media use. And the overview, again, these are just a few highlights, show that among New York City high school students, and this was based on a survey done in 2021 for, I should say, public high school students, 38% reported feeling so sad or hopeless during the past 12 months that they stopped doing their usual activities, which is a 40% increase from 2011. 15.6% reported seriously considering a suicide attempt. We also see this as a pretty large increase from 2011, a 34% increase. And 70, this is pretty striking, 77% reported spending 3 or more hours a day on screens, which is not including time on schoolwork, which is it's a pretty high percentage, spending quite a few of their free time outside of school on screens. Now, wanted to share what this looks like in the context of New York City's sort of the social media in the context of some of these phenomenons. So as you can see, the increase, right, in particularly in this case, in sadness and hopelessness, the percentage of high school students who are reporting persistent sadness or hopelessness, we see it starts to go up, right? We were talking about 2021 compared to 2011. And around that period of time, we see it coincides with the adoption of algorithmic feeds, and mobile accessibility of social media for youth begins around this time. Now, of course, this does not, the fact that they coincide is associational. It does not prove causality. And literature on this, it's still emergent, but there is literature, some of which shows just associational as this does, and some of the research shows that there was some initial research that is starting to show a causal relationship between social media use and youth mental health outcomes. So this has been of an issue that's really a priority concern for the Commissioner of Health and the city overall. As a result of these concerns, the city convened, had a convening in June, about almost a year ago, in June 2023, on the city's role in social media and youth mental health. And we convened it was about 150 stakeholders in partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation. This was very intentionally a convening of mixed stakeholders. So we had different levels of government, we had academics, mental health experts, NGOs, foundations, et cetera. And most critically, we had young people there to speak about their experiences. And we had, panel speakers that did some level setting for the group, and then interactive breakout groups focused on policy and advocacy, litigation and accountability, public health interventions, and research. And the proceedings, this generated many different recommendations, and the proceedings and the recommendations can be found on the health department's website. I'm happy to make sure everyone has links to that after the presentation is over. So you can see more specifically some of the recommendations that came out of the convening. So based on this convening, the city is taking a few different actions and pretty significant ones. And again, these were based on the convening and the recommendations of all the stakeholders. So one really important step that came out of this was that the health commissioner issued an advisory on social media and really named it as a public health hazard. The advisory offers concrete guidance to New Yorkers that includes people who work with kids in various capacities, including schools. It includes parents and caregivers. It includes health professionals. And again, I can ensure the advisory is also on our website, and can ensure everyone has the link to that. The city also filed a lawsuit against several large social media companies. And the city released a framework for action that is entitled New York City's Role in the National Crisis of Social Media and Youth Mental Health. And this framework for action has several components to it, which I can go over momentarily. It is also, all of these are available for you to take a look at. The framework is really, intended to address what we believe is the impact of social media on youth from a variety of vantage points. So these are all in various stages of development, and I'm happy to speak to each of them. The first strategy is to disseminate and support the use of resource guides, and these will be for New York City caregivers and other youth-serving organizations, also for schools and healthcare providers. We know a lot of times, people hear, that we should, approach this issue differently, engage youth differently, but it's really hard. And I say this as a parent myself, it's really hard to know how. It's really hard to know how to do this. So we will be issuing, and they should be coming out not too long from now, these resource guides that are intended to just really help people through that, with the implementation. What does that look like as an individual trying to do this differently? The second strategy is really looking at key legislation that we believe can help both protect youth from some of the features of social media platforms that we believe can be the most harmful. There's two bills in particular that we are supporting right now. One is a state bill called the SAFE Act, and the second is a federal bill called the Kids Online Safety Act. And I'm happy to talk a little bit about that if either of those, if people have questions about them. The third strategy is really to increase our knowledge and the knowledge of our stakeholders. So not just to keep that knowledge, obviously, at the health department, but to disseminate it. And we have recently implemented a it's the largest, as I said, largest survey of youth mental health that we've done ever. And this is a survey that it surveyed parents and caregivers themselves from their own vantage point. It surveyed parents and caregivers to ask them to speak about their perceptions of the young people in their families and how well they were doing from a mental health perspective and their use of social media. And then, with permission of the parents and caregivers and then consent of the youth, we also reached out to youth and surveyed those who were willing to participate, older youth, to hear directly from them, from their own perspectives about different aspects of their mental health and well-being and also their social media use. So we have closed those surveys. We are analyzing the data and we will be issuing reports as well that will disseminate this knowledge. So so far we've got resource guides, advocacy from a policy and legislative perspective, research and knowledge dissemination. And then the two other strategies that we are actively pursuing, one is to establish a youth advisory council that can inform us around these future efforts. We think that centering youth voice is really critical, and are really excited about getting this off the ground. Finally, we are looking to promote the development and use of more tech-free spaces for youth. And obviously, tech-free spaces requires other activities that will engage youth, and looking to see how we can kind of cultivate that more, in the places where youth are. So I'm happy to stop sharing right now. And, I'm sure that folks have questions, and I can dedicate, as much time as the organizers would like me to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Marnie. I have one, and I'm just going to open it up to everyone. The statistics at the start of the presentation were really striking to me. One thing I noticed is they were collected in 2021, which is one of the heights of COVID. And I could see it sort of cutting either way. It's particularly isolating. It's this generation's first pandemic. So I could see mental health issues being exacerbated. On the other hand, I could see, everyone's on social media because you're home. There's nothing to do. People might actually feel more connected. Maybe that's too glass half full. Was the effect of COVID at all, looked at when collecting those statistics? And was that a driving factor in doing this recollection that's happening now?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a great question. So the survey that is used to collect that data is called the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. We call it, because we have acronyms for everything, the YRBS, and it is aligned with a national CDC survey. And so the questions are fairly standardized, and localities and states, it's used across at the national level and various states and localities. I don't believe that in the 21 version of it, it's done biannually, I should say, and the 2021 version of it, that there were explicitly questions about, has COVID impacted you in this way? But what we can do is track change over time. So the most recent iteration of that survey just happened in 2023. And it will enable us to take a look at, pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, to look at some of the changes over time and how youth responded to various questions, and help us to sort of interpret, what you're getting at and make sense of it. In addition to the YRBS, we did this a new survey that I was mentioning during the presentation that we've not done before, that also allows us to take it allowed us to take a closer look at some of the issues that were of interest to us, including social media use. So it allowed us to explore that more fully than maybe we had through the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And so those data are still being processed. They haven't been released yet, but that they, they're always made available to the public. And, it'll help us, as I said, to share that with you and also make some sense of what we're seeing and what these patterns are.
So interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kevin, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, John. Marnie, this is such an important topic, and I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for that background. I'm glad to hear you're on board with the Stop Addictive Feeds Exploitation for Kids Act, also the Kids Online Safety Act. I know it's stalled in Congress. I'm assuming you're also on board with the New York Child Data Protection Act, which I think is important as well.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah, that's one of the bills that we were definitely looking at as well.
Yeah, I think, I'm a father of 3 teenagers. I coach a track and field team at a middle school. We have 53 kids on the roster. We hear about this constantly from parents. And I think a lot of it is parents don't know what to do always. They know there's an issue. I'd really love to know if there has been or plans for parental education, because I tell you, they're screaming for it.
Thank you. That's such a good question. And as I said, a parent of an adolescent and a high schooler and a middle schooler, I empathize, not just sympathize. I empathize. We're all living it. And yes, so we are imminently going to be releasing some resource guides for parents and then others. So other adults who work with youth. We have 2 different ones that will be coming out to really help parents walk them through that. Like what it's the how, right? It's not that I don't think at this point people are aware. There's lots of press. There's lots of awareness that this is, somewhere between challenging and problematic, depending on the circumstance, but not a lot of hows. And so those resource guides we hope will be helpful to folks. I'm also really open to your feedback. If you think that having more webinars in addition to written materials is helpful, we are completely open to that. I think this is something that we want to know what's most helpful to community members. And so yeah, we're really open to your feedback on that. And I think that's something that we can also, bring back and look into. There's also resource guides on, we have in this advisory, this commissioner's advisory I was talking about also has some directives to the public. So for parents, form it, there's we have links to AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics has guidance, and it's guidance on how to develop a family social media plan, right? So there's other also important, documents out there that can help parents through it. But I understand also, people learn in different ways and take in information different ways, and just having a written document is not going to do it for some people. So we're really open to making sure that this is communicated in a variety of ways for a variety of community members. Oh, I think you're muted. Kevin, if you're speaking, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm agreeing with you. I always thought that a forum would be helpful, because I know parents don't have a lot of time for a lot of things, but they would have time for this. I know that definitively they would come to this and learn more. And it's really a 2-pronged approach as I see it. Schools need to be involved as well. Schools need to be, educate more. And when you boil it down, I've heard a lot of anecdotal information, but also a lot of research. It comes down to this comparison issue. People go on social media and their body image is compared with what they see as perfection in some of these Instagram photoshopped ideals, but also cyberbullying. So if you talk to schools, they need to get a better handle on how they can get their students to not fall for the comparison issue, and also the cyberbullying. And if we get the parents and the students, I should say the schools together, I think that would be a tremendous forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback a little bit on what Kevin said. First of all, thank you very much, John Keller, on the forum committee. And first of all, how did you gather the information? How did you talk to? Did you go through public schools, private schools, independent schools? How did you get at that? First question.
Yeah. So for the data that I presented today, the statistics on sadness and hopelessness, et cetera, that survey, that's the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that I was referencing earlier, is a survey of a representative sample of public high school students. So it is, I wanted to offer that caveat. The slide didn't say public. I always try to point out that it's public, because I don't want to say that it's representative of all high school students in New York City. It's public high school students, and it is a survey that is disseminated in collaboration with DOE, now called New York City Public Schools. We have been doing the high school one for many, many, many years, and a middle school one was also newly introduced in New York City as well. So that's going to be fantastic. We're really get a sense of what's happening earlier on. Does that, and then the other survey I was referring to, the sort of like the more in-depth youth mental health, because the YRBS survey looks at a whole range of issues affecting young people. It's not, mental health is just one component of it. We did this fuller youth mental health survey, and that was more of a population level, was a representative sample, and it wasn't specific to the type of school a young person was enrolled in. So
Okay.
yeah.
And then my comment is, first of all, thank you, that clarifies. I think my kids might have been part of the survey, they graduated from public school in 2021. But, so then I think Kevin's point is really valuable, that we need to engage parents, because I know, I just learned by watching my kids and how they jump around. 1 minute they're on an Instagram page, and the next minute they're texting friends, and the next minute they're looking at a TikTok video, and parents, we need to understand, how that all works, and how can you engage with them and help them, because it's so, as Kevin suggested, it's so seductive in so many ways, it's the ultimate bright, shiny object, so if you can engage parents, guardians through schools and as broadly as possible, I think that would be valuable. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Steve?
You opened by giving us these pretty dramatic statistics, the 40% increase, coincident with, this 10-year period of the increased use of social media. But for that 40% increase to be particularly dramatic means that the baseline was pretty high too. It seems to me that social media is amplifying the adolescent angst that always exists, and that possibly, although I don't doubt that we would mitigate the issue if we eliminated social media, it seems to me that it may be more efficacious to address the crises that adolescents go through, and all of adolescence is in a sense of crisis. So I wonder if we're not just targeting the acute issue instead of, going back to the fundamentals and dealing with it in a way that's broader than just the social media issue. Thanks.
I really appreciate that question. As someone who, focuses on our bureau is really there to address youth mental health globally, holistically. So social media, as you said, is one issue, and it is not the only issue or the only actionable step we can or should be taking. So I'm really excited. This administration has really embraced youth mental health as a priority. And we released, I think it was about a year ago, I'd have to check the exact release date, a plan called Care Community in Action. And I am happy to put everything I'm mentioning, I'm happy to send Pauline a list of links for you all, so you can take a look as deeply or not, as in your own time. So the Care Community in Action Plan is really like a comprehensive plan to address, improve, mental health and well-being for 3 populations, one of which is young people in the city. And so it really goes through a whole variety of strategies that we have to do that. Yeah, I think, I'll leave it at that because it's probably more detail than we have time to get into tonight, but it speaks to what you're speaking to, which is that we really need a whole multitude, right, of strategies to support youth. And we're working on those strategies as we speak, essentially, and many of them are in play already.
Well, thank you, Marnie, from the whole board, firstly, for being here tonight. Secondly, I would want to ask, when I look at these, kind of these monitoring the overall future surveys quite often, and what's something that always stands out to me is that it's not, our nation leads in many other places of this phenomenon. And it seems to me that the third places in other nations that exist, these tech-free spaces that you mentioned back in that first slide, are a key part of that. And the key reason that the US is kind of falling behind, like this is not replicable in Europe, because, you know, there's a million places to go. But if you're in the burbs or even here in the city, there's not a lot of places to go that are very tech free. So what's the city doing about that, kind of issue?
Really.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think that, you know, the survey that we just did, I think that's one of the issues that it allows us to look at more closely, like, why do you know, asking questions like, why do you use social media? Right? Like what, like, you know, you know, how do you think what impact do you think it has on your mental health? And so, you know, we are really looking at, we're looking at this. I think we're still formulating like different strategies to increase, because as you know, as you're pointing to, it's not just like creating, it's not just a, you know, you can't do this in the zone. It's what is the alternative? Like, what are we offering you, right? That is engaging, that are like real life activities, right? That are meaningful, that are helping you connect to other, you know, form strong social connections, right, to other people. So I'd say like, let me get back to you on some of the specifics. I think we're still formulating that, and because it's also something that requires a collaborative effort that goes beyond the health department, right? That's something that takes like a whole city approach, right, to do. And so it's going to take a lot of partnership between us and other city agencies to make that happen.
Oh, sorry. No,
I just want to say thank you.
Kevin, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, just one more last, and you said other city agencies. I see this as an all hands on deck issue. Is it safe to say, and I see that the governor was with I guess it was the Mental Health Association of New York today and talking about social media being addictive. It's so nice that when people say it like it is addictive. Is the city and the state working hand in hand on this issue, in agreement on this issue? If you can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are very excited about what the governor has endorsed, and also from a legislative perspective, what the governor has endorsed. So yeah, I think these are very mutually reinforcing positions that city and state have taken, which is very, very nice to, as you said, to see. It's really great when those things align, because obviously we're more powerful when we are aligned and working in the same direction. So yeah.
Good to know. And I think it's safe to say it works across the political aisle from both sides have see the issue, the seriousness of getting this corrected, especially with addictive feeds. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Hi, thank you for being here. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the SAFE Act and what it entails.
Oh, did you say the SAFE Act?
Yes.
Yes, I'm happy to share a little bit more about that. Absolutely. So, the SAFE Act is a state, so I mentioned two bills before. The SAFE Act is a state level bill, and it is one that has a few different features to it. It is really trying to regulate aspects of, you know, social media that are currently allowing them to create these like really highly personalized and you know, addictive kind of products, right, without a lot of restriction. And so I can just give you a few features of it. The bill would prohibit social media platforms from providing an addictive feed to users who are younger than 18 without parental consent. It also requires social media platforms to obtain parental consent before allowing notifications to be delivered to users, who are users who are younger than 18, between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. And then it allows parents to prevent a minor child from accessing a social media platform between the same hours of midnight and 6 a.m. and to limit the overall number of hours that their child can spend on the platform. It is really, and again, I'm saying this just as a parent, there are not a lot of nuanced controls that are built into these platforms, right? There are some, but they're not nuanced. I guess that's the best way I can say it. And I've been kind of shocked as a parent to see that. And so essentially this bill is allowing for those, you know, it's requiring those controls to be built in so that parents and youth can have more limits, like around what the young people are being exposed to and during what hours, essentially.
I'm happy, Libby, to raise that because I was wondering what we as a community board could do, and it sounds like supporting this legislation would be something useful for us. I mean, this is before the Senate or Assembly now. I apologize for not being familiar with the details to say that.
This is it's been introduced in both houses. Yeah, it's both Senate and Assembly.
Right.
Yeah.
One other question for you, Marty, and thank you for being so generous with your time. I believe the commissioner's advisory recommended that smartphones not be given until age 14. Am I recalling that correctly?
That
I
is
was so
correct.
Interested by that, because it tees up a really critical issue. You know, smartphones are the gateway here, full stop. That being said, we do live in New York City. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on sort of balancing those somewhat competing interests of, there are some concrete benefits of smartphones, tracking, communication. But like I said, it is in black and white terms, the absolute gateway to social media.
Yeah.
And can I just quickly add to that, and smartphones in schools specifically, because there's a crazy Wall Street Journal article about this. And how they're just failing at every level to keep them out of the hands of students in schools right now.
That's interesting. I hadn't seen that article, so I will have to take a look at that. I can't speak as much for the DOE just because I'm not representing that city agency. So that's something I feel like I can't really speak to what their policies are at the moment. But in terms of the delay, the recommendation was to delay giving, as you said, children access to a smartphone, or other device where they can, through which they can access social media until at least age 14. The recommendation was that, and as you said, especially in a city, right? It's become a very critical means for us to help keep our kids, right, to safe, in touch with them as they're traveling throughout the city, right? So the recommendation was to start with a phone that doesn't have the ability at least to access social media. And, I know that there are models out there that, block that, but there's other features that allow you to communicate with the young person in your life and to be able to track the young person in your life. So that was sort of the compromise recommendation that the advisory was offering. Again, I know it's challenging, right? I know it's challenging. It's a family by family, obviously, decision, but but it's good to know that there are alternatives if that's something. It's not all or nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a thorny issue. Thank you, unless there's any more questions. And seeing none, thank you so much for your time, Marty. We so appreciate it. You're welcome to come back anytime you'd like. I also want to thank Robin and Pauline for their invaluable help setting this up. So thank you all. This was a real treat and I think very, very informative.
Thank you for having me. And again, thank you for the feedback. I really value hearing what you all feel community members and parents and caregivers need. We take that, we really take that in, and appreciate the invitation for tonight and happy to follow up with some links for all of you.
Thank you so much. Take care. All righty. I think that was really interesting. And I think it's a tricky issue that we're not going to solve tonight, in a week, in a month, probably not in a year.
As opposed to all the other issues that we do solve.
As you can see by the rest of the agenda, we're going to solve everything else.
That's right.
But it strikes me as a particularly tricky issue, maybe that's a better way to say it. I really want to keep digging in on this. And thank you all for the fantastic questions. Those were really very, very thoughtful. The next item is a draft resolution opposing the city's implementation of the 60-day rule. And this is somewhat in our distant memories, at least mine. I assume you all have better memories than me. But we had the co-chairs of the PTA for PS 116 come in February, I believe. And they described some of the harmful impacts of the 60-day rule, which essentially has been forcing the children of asylum seekers to have their schools relocated every 60 days, which has been very disruptive. Since I initially drafted this in, I think, March, there were some changes that I think sort of illustrate the need for us to have a resolution. Mainly, Brad Lander, the city comptroller, released the conclusions of the comptroller's investigation on May 9th. And it was unfortunately just as bad as we thought it could be. He described it as haphazard, very detrimental, especially to elementary school children. And he recommended that the policy be revoked and ended immediately. So I've added in that paragraph there that Brian has very helpfully zeroed in on. Stu also had, among a number of really interesting ideas, the idea that we should make our resolved clauses even stronger. Previously, the resolved clauses did not call for the end of the 60-day rule, and just said we strongly oppose it. So at least now, and these are all, everything here is for discussion. My goal is that we just walk out of here with a resolution. So I reframed and proposed new language in the first resolve clause, saying we should end it, and in any event, if it's not immediately ended, we oppose any continued implementation of the rule. I imagine there could be some reasonable mind that says, well, you know, it's not great to just call for the end of something without proposing an alternative. Fair. I think that, you know, we don't have the information necessary to propose anything, nor is it really our job. But I'd be curious to hear your all thoughts on this specific clause or anything throughout. I know you have some.
Well, actually, this is an aside that I want to start with. I had mentioned the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act,
Yeah,
which is a federal rule which says that if you relocate a homeless child, you have to provide transportation for that child to the original school. The comptroller's report says that that's not happening. He says, as a result, families reportedly left the shelter system or accepted placement, which required long commutes. One educator reported that new placements have had an impact on the student attendance, as they now take multiple subway transfers away in a different borough. So that just seems like a violation of federal law. In which case, I think that, I mean, either that's a violation of federal law, or that the parents should be informed that they have a right to request this transportation.
yeah.
So I would think about adding a clause about that. Also in your latest, in the earlier version, we talked about strongly opposes implementation. In your current version, which you think I would have in front of me, it just went softer. It said, it had a language about recommendation. We recommend that the city act in a particular way.
Oh, do you want to just change the verb? My intent was to make it stronger.
I
actually.
just
Yeah.
want to say, that we, yeah, I want to just.
Yeah.
change the verb.
No, yeah, let's do that. We can wordsmith until we're all happy. Let's, if this is all right, let's go in reverse order of these comments. So I think the latter will be easier. So instead of recommends, insist.
No, we don't have the power to do that. If I find my notes,
Demands.
oh,
Cries.
this might be them. Yeah, look at that.
This looks like.
I would say calls for the mayor to,
Oh, sure. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I mean, we don't have authority
We could
to.
say something like strongly urges. Yeah.
I would call,
I would go with.
I'm okay with strongly urges, but I want to really call on the mayor to do this. I mean, I think there's an obligation to.
Demands.
Kevin has his yellow.
Calls
pen,
upon.
So.
Yeah.
To.
Mayor, yeah, I think we just
Wanna
need
hear-
two after Adams, calls upon Mayor Eric Adams too. Yeah, thank you, Roberta.
Kevin has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Kevin, go for
Oh,
it.
no, this, you guys are on a roll here. Mine was actually about something that John had pointed out about solutions, but go ahead and finish this discussion on this resolve if you want.
That would be great, if you don't mind. In my mind, if we could just do this clause, then the McKinney Act, and then we'll get to yours, Kevin, if that's all right. Enacting reports that calls for me to end the first time to grant strike. Okay, so do we, just to button this off, we agree this looks passable? Yes. Okay. The McKinney Act is interesting, and you raised this initially when I sent it, I think in March or whenever it was. I was originally worried about this getting bloated. Because there is a lot of case law that's interesting, I think you also pointed out, and rightly so. And I had this like idea in my head that no one reads anything over 2 pages, but that may just be me being a psychopath. And I also think the fact that the comptroller specifically noted similar concerns heightens the need to potentially add something. So I'm curious to hear your all thoughts. I can see it being, we had a whereas clause describing the McKinney Act, and then just maybe an additional whereas at the very end, following probably a new final whereas, just saying that the comptroller noted sort of the concerns animating the McKinney Act or potential violation of it. But now that I say that out loud, I do wonder, you know, if we raise the idea that federal law has been violated, it is a little bit of a rabbit hole. I probably want to do some independent research just to check on how it's been interpreted, what constitutes a violation of it, what that looks like in New York law. I don't know, but curious to hear your own thoughts. Can I see Kevin has his head up? How about Kevin then you, Steve? Sorry.
Just that, again, on the solutions, I think the 60-day in some ways prevents the work authorization that's being sought. And that's really the goal for so many of these families willing to work, want the work authorization, and the 60-day rule may throw them off that that trajectory on getting that work authorization. I just wanted to see if that was something that was considered as part of this and part of sort of the solution, is how does that work in? Because that's such an important part of this issue.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I do think that I think it might have been legal aid had they mentioned that in one of their press releases. In terms of the solution, I personally do feel unequipped to propose a solution, an alternative. And I think we sort of have to get comfortable with the idea that we're saying no to something without an alternative. But again, I'm very open to other thoughts.
That's fine. I was thinking the solution could be something about, getting the work authorization first, even if that's well beyond 60 days. But do we want to at least acknowledge that that's a goal, and that this 60-day rule could prevent, or at least undermine the new arrival's ability to obtain that work authorization and let's face it, stable employment, which they're seeking? Is it worth mentioning?
I do think it would be. Brian, do you mind scrolling down to the last resolved? I think we have aspirational.
This is the,
So regular published statistics. Maybe we could add like and promulgate an alternative policy. I think there's 2 goals here, I guess, to further the work authorization issue and to enable students to have a better education.
Well, I'm talking about more than the students, obviously, the families, because by extension, the families. But if you think that's too far outside the guardrails of this, I understand.
Yeah, it's tricky because this is student focused, but it is a real issue you're raising. Let's revisit it. Before we close out, let's revisit this. Back to McKinney, sorry.
Actually, I was going something.
Oh, no. Okay, go for it.
the problem that the city is facing is that there's not enough shelter space, presumably. The solution to the 60-day rule problem is to end the 60-day rule problem. And then the city has to deal with finding more shelter space. But it's not, I mean, what it's doing now is it's just kicking people out onto the street. And, you know, doing all kinds of messy things that aren't good for them, and they're really not good for the city either. So I'm not, I mean, I think the solution is, and, you know, I mean, the presentation, I don't know that there was a rationale given for the 60-day rule.
No, there wasn't. It's
So,
kind of like,
so
I
if
mean,
there's no rationale, it's really hard for us to provide a solution. And I think that if you read the comptroller's report on how sloppy this has been implemented, you could say, well, it was just municipal incompetence. You could also say, well, they didn't have a real motive to do any better. You know,
Immigration rate is a federal issue at its core. And I think that the problem, another big problem here is that it's become very compartmentalized, the response. In that the feds have Floyd Bennett Field, and that has not turned into, and the state as like a reputable place to send people. People don't want to go to Floyd Bennett Field, and that's where they have set up the most resources, and where they have kind of set up the overall point of most accessibility to resources is that shelter, but it's just too far away.
yeah,
So it's in the middle of nowhere, so the problem is now, and I think that if we call out any sort of law from the feds, then we should talk about also them kind of mustering an all-government approach with the mayor's office or the governor's office or somebody, because they are pouring a lot of money into this. And if it's all going to Floyd Bennett Field or not, or like other shelter space that isn't being, you know, put into a very good level of space and allocative space, then I don't see the point in that.
yeah.
and as an aside to that's this broad problem with the shelter system. I mean,
Right.
for 40 years, we've had a system that spent enormous amounts of money sheltering families in slum hotels, instead of investing in real
Exactly.
housing. I mean, I 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I visited, I think it was then called the Prince Hotel, which was, you know, and I, as a journalist, and I saw families there in these tiny rooms, and, you know, I was snuck in because I wouldn't have been allowed, and I was snuck in by a social worker. And I asked this one woman, why are you scratching your leg? And she said, oh, that's just, you know, insects or mites or something. And there were these tiny rooms, and they were paying more for these little rooms than I was paying in rent in my standard, you know, quote, luxury apartment palace. So you know, I think that it all plays into the same issue, that the city is not spending money efficiently.
Yeah.
There may not be enough money, but the money that's there is being used in a very inefficient manner. But I don't know that we have much we can do about it.
Didn't, I recall that we had a resolution on the shelter system or lack thereof for asylum seeking people a year ago. Where it was right around the time, I think Carlina came to, we were in the auditorium at, oh my gosh,
Country College?
Hunter College, thank you. Do you recall that? Does anyone recall that? Does that ring a bell? Yeah, we don't need to go down.
December. We passed. I don't know, might have been the.
Well, while the pressure's on Brian,
Sorry.
I think going back to the McKinney,
Oh, yeah.
you know, what we can say is simply that the city, I mean, I think we want to end the 60-day rule, but in its continued existence, the city should at least be compelled to inform families that they're entitled to free transportation for their elementary school kids.
Mm.
So that's the way that we can put it into the resolution.
I agree, and I think, that could be. The language you just said could be the final, resolved, and I think we just add a whereas, I can try and pull up
So,
quoting language from McKinney.
while we're, working on that, I think the resolution we're thinking of was passed in January.
Oh, this
Uh,
might have, yeah.
Resolution urging New York City to preserve the right to shelter mandate.
I think this is it, sorry, I'm amazed how quickly you pulled that up. And this is a little, yeah, this is actually,
Yeah.
there's a settlement on this not too long ago. Okay, so sorry, I'm just gonna pull up the statute for the first whereas and proposed language in the chat. The thing is though, and this is one of the issues too, is whether the asylum seeking youth qualify as homeless under this statute. I remember I was looking at this when you first raised it, and it's an interesting thing. They have to qualify as homeless, you have to lack a fixed, regular and adequate nighttime residence. And I wonder, I don't think anyone's gonna think more deeply about this than we are now, but. If they do have. You know, a place there where they're sleeping for 60 days, even though it's far from ideal.
I don't think that somebody is qualifies as not homeless because they're in a homeless shelter for more than 60 days.
I agree, yeah.
I mean, I appreciate you know, we should
I think
find a formal opinion about it.
Yeah, no, I also think I'm thinking about this as like a lawyer instead of a human.
Well, that is how you should think about it.
Let me just pull up the actual statute. While I'm pulling this up, are there any other, are there any other issues with the resa we wanted to talk through? Ah, look at you. Yeah, wait, let me actually just double check. I just want to make sure this is the codified version, because this is from the house, right?
I-
Actually, I think it is. Wow, 10 points for Stu. Love it.
Yeah, accidents don't count.
Do you mind just putting?
If you put it in the chat,
Yeah, I was just saying, do you mind just putting that in the chat and I can add
I don't seem to have access to the chat.
hold on, let me see. Let me promote you, so do.
Chat. Oh, chat disabled.
Hold on. If I promote you to a panelist, you should be able.
Looks like it wants me to sign in.
Or if you want to email it. Am I,
Still says chat disabled.
I have it up too, I'm just pulling up the actual language.
Excellent. That sounds like.
Just want to make sure, it's a very long statute, I'm just trying to make sure that.
32 for local educational agencies in the state.
Okay, so you're looking at the promptly provide the necessary services, including transportation. I think the codified is- See. Just thrilling to sit there. Okay. Here we go. We did it, guys. We did it. Um, I'm just gonna put the language in the chat for now from the statute itself. So I would say, please also. I'm gonna put in like a full version, 11432. So after the quotation mark, I propose putting my prior message, if that makes sense. So I would start with the McKinney-Vento Act, 42 USC. If we could insert one of those section symbols before the 11432, that'd be amazing.
Blue book citation. You said.
Close to it. This is definitely not. Okay, so, and I think, let me just think about where this would make most sense in the reso. Am I scrolling up a little bit? Where are we in it? This is the bottom of the first page?
The second, this is at the very end.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So let's.
But again, I mean, the qualification here is that this only applies if they don't terminate the 60-day rule. Which is, and our reso says you should terminate it, so we're really saying if you don't
Yeah,
listen
no
to.
permitting, yeah. If you ignore us. I might actually just put this as the last whereas, unless you go with other thoughts. It doesn't really fit narratively. Which I think is okay. It's just background. Some like very annoying nitpicky comments. Based there. Could you please make the first T lowercase, and then for the that's the first letter of the quote, we do the bracketed the, please. And then, could we please end the quote with 4 periods with the space in between each?
Oh, space in between.
So you can, sorry. Thank you for indulging me with this. And then I
You
was-
just blue booked, oh, red booked, sorry, red booked.
This is like. And then can we just add a quote, and then a semicolon, please? And then the statement was that one. And then if we could just add, or I'm sorry, get rid of the extra 2 spaces before the resolve.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yes.
And then I think what I would propose is after the first resolve, to add a new resolve. And, be it further resolved that in the event, I'm sorry, I can type this instead of dictating it, it's very annoying.
No, that's fine.
And we can tweak this to our heart's content. Um. I'm still a little iffy, having not looked at how the McKinney-Vento Act has been interpreted, but
I'm uncomfortable too. I mean, if we're voting tonight, I didn't do enough research to. I mean, we could put in softer language that simply says that if the city is going to move kids around, it's gotta provide them with transportation.
hmm,
Or it's gotta inform their parents that they're entitled to transportation to the original school. That would be better.
That's what it says, like, that resolve.
yeah,
But
maybe
we don't even, I mean, we could do it without quoting the act.
I was actually
We
just
can
gonna
simply
suggest that,
say
yeah, let's just,
that parents should be informed that their children are entitled to transportation to the original school if even if they're moved to a shelter in another borough.
so let's change or I propose we change this to that in the event that Mayor Eric Adams does not terminate the 60-day rule, we should say that does not like promptly terminate or immediately terminate the 60-day rule. That let's also make this active, that the city, I guess,
Let
Because
the
I-
parents be informed. Do you want the city to inform the parents?
this, yeah, it's just, this like tees up the next issue, is that like, I wanted to keep it kind of vague, because I don't know, I don't want to specify an agency, right? Because we don't know the specific agency, and I don't want to unnecessarily limit ourselves, so I guess I'd say that the city inform the parents of their right to transportation. And it's not the. Yeah, the city of New York inform parents of asylum seeking youth of their right to transportation. We would do city provided transportation to their school of origin.
Should asylum seeking or any homeless youth?
I think for here, we would do asylum seeking because we're not, it's not relevant. We're not,
Or that's.
the reso's not about like
Like,
today.
rule doesn't apply.
Inform parents of asylum seeking of their right to transportation. Can we change it to city provided transportation just to tighten it slightly? And I'm sorry, this is. You're experiencing what it's like to be a law firm associate, and I'm truly sorry. And then I would just say, city provide transportation to their school of origin. Then I would strike the, oh, sorry. what was
Well,
that?
we get rid of provided, but.
Yeah, exactly. And then I would strike the last, everything after in accordance with.
Right, sorry,
In accordance with the McKinney-Vento Act.
this whole part.
Yeah. The other matter does not immediately terminate the 60-day rule that the city of New York inform parents of asylum seeking youth of their right to city provided transportation to their school of origin.
I think that you said not I'm sorry, immediately terminate. Okay.
This looks good to me. We just add a period. Oh, perfect. Second, you're right. Do we want to add another whereas emphasizing Brad Lander's concerns about transportation issues? We feel like we're getting like,
Because that would be the can't find the word.
like a factual predicate.
Antecedent to the
Better word.
resolution.
I think it's in here. I have the report up.
So this is the,
Oh,
that's from this
ah,
report.
look at you. This is good, okay. Sorry, thank you,
Just
Brian, for really. And the hard work. So I think I would propose, just to keep this from being like a, 12 sentence long whereas, doing another whereas. And I think I would say something like,
After this whereas.
I'm gonna just put it in the chat again for our limited mental health here. Whereas.
Oh, we might be deleting it, but right now it says Bento Act. Is that right? Is
I think it is,
that Bento?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I
thought
can-
it was spelled differently in the other one.
oh, that's a real possibility. Okay, this is like a little rough typing wise. But I think this is the main idea, just caption it, the report acknowledge the issues. I'm just gonna double check Vento. I do think it is Vento, that helps. Okay, the May 9th, 2024 report issued by City Comptroller Brad Lander also found that families reported those children. And one reporter. Maybe you and acknowledge that one reporter, or I'm sorry, and acknowledge that one educator reported that. It should also, sorry, my typing kind of failed us. It should be multiple subway transfers away and in a different borough.
It's a cute typo.
Subway, right?
It's like,
It's in the last line, like halfway through, multiple
Oh.
subway, yeah.
Subway. Sorry,
Okay.
I read
This
it
is-
subway.
The most annoying comment, but do you mind making the final quotation, round and not straight?
mhm,
Uh,
Period.
just backspacing.
You can, yeah, you just have to type it in again.
Mhm.
And then just a semicolon. My paralegals love working for me, I swear. I feel, really good about this. How do you all feel?
Yeah, I think it's a great issue. I mean, it really is. This is one that everyone seems to come together around, which in schools is unusual, so that's good.
It's nice to have a consensus builder in schools.
You want me to call the question or do you want further discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to pause, yeah, let's do it.
I don't wanna. I'll call the question.
And I guess I can second. So I think we do a roll call by, or I'm sorry, a vote by, thank you.
roll call vote.
Thank you. Yeah, the words are all there, just in the wrong order.
Sure. So we'll now take a vote on resolution opposing New York City's implementation of the 60-day rule for asylum seeking families. By roll call, when your name is called, please
Oh.
answer.
I don't know if we can do this procedurally, but someone just raised their hand. If we can acknowledge them, I'd like to.
Yeah, sure, just one moment while I promote them to a panelist.
Yeah, sorry.
Actually, while we're waiting and while we're looking at that, the
Slide.
title is that we oppose the implementation of the 60-day rule.
Just be the 60 that, yeah.
Yeah, just
Right.
oppose the 60-day rule.
All
Hello?
right. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, the changes that you're making to this document about providing bus stuff or, getting the kids to the elementary schools. The chat was disabled, but the Q&A has been live and I've been putting some comments in there, but it looks like they're already getting buses to take people to the MTA system to get them to their schools.
I completely missed your messages. Even if they are providing it, and it's great that they are, I think we would still keep it in just to not hold their feet to the fire, but to ensure that it's happening in 100 of 100 cases, if that makes sense.
And so I wasn't sure if all the amendments that you were making to the document to be submitted were just to make sure the kids are matriculated where they were so that it's not, you know, as I say, it's mental anguish for the children if they keep moving location. But or is the other issue, or if there's one that's more precedent about where the funding goes according to where those students are matriculated.
I think I may have missed your question. I'm sorry. Do you mind restating it?
So like for this, for changing this document, is your concern also that the funds being allocated to go to the schools to teach more students are not being properly distributed?
I am personally concerned about it, but I don't think that's a primary concern for this, Reza.
Okay.
Thank you for joining, and again, I'm sorry for missing your messages.
Okay.
We're violating like every procedural Robert's rule here. I'm sorry, but can we just resume the vote? Is that okay? Do we need to call the question again?
We're a committee, we're casual.
We're the cool committee.
You're the boss.
We're people at home don't know this, but we're all in our underwear below.
The now the New York Post is definitely gonna.
Finally.
Oh, man, cover it was.
Let's do the roll call. Sure. We'll all commit to not telling Sandy about a violation of Robert's rules.
So again, we'll now take a vote on the resolution opposing New York City's implementation of the 60-day rule for asylum seekers.
Okay, I'm sorry, are we leaving the word implementation in?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Thank you for raising that. Yes, if we could please change the title. I think we would just change it to opposing the 60-day rule for asylum seeking families.
So we'll now take a vote on a resolution opposing the 60-day rule for asylum seeking families. When your name is called, please answer in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. I'll conduct the vote by roll call and declare the results of the vote. Don DeRico.
In favor.
Thank you. Stu Desser.
In favor?
Thank you. John Keller.
In favor.
Thank you. Kevin O'Keefe.
I'm in favor, but did we miss a second on the call to question? I didn't hear one.
We probably did. There,
I'll provide it now if you want. I'm in favor.
I appreciate it. You're tightening up the ship here, Kevin.
Just trying to, you know, be that safety net, that's all.
No, I appreciate it.
Roberto Ruiz Melendez. In favor. Thank you. Livia Shrednick.
In favor.
Thank you. With 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining, and 0 not entitled. The motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you all. I really thoughtful comments here. The last item is our budget requests. And I know it's getting late, so I'm gonna try to make this as streamlined as possible. Brian was the ceremony master here. Do you mind pulling up the air table?
Yeah. Have to filter it again. Apologies.
And just while Brian's pulling it up, I have what I think may be an uncontroversial proposal. There's currently 3 outstanding requests. 2 are ranked. 1, funds were given, but it's not clear the status of the work. My proposal is that we run these down and get these done, because some of these have languished for a little while before we take on new ones. The one that really leapt out at me, and these are all really interesting issues, and they honestly, they interact so perfectly with the issues we've been discussing today, was actually the third one, because if PS 116 doesn't have a security system, that seems just egregious to me. I was talking to Jesus about this over the weekend, and the write-up for the request is a little ambiguous. It's our understanding, may or may not, sufficient security system. I don't know what an insufficient security system is, but I believe it could exist. So I reached out to a couple people at PS 116 to try and just get a better idea of what's going on. Once they hopefully respond, I think we can sort of figure out how to move forward. On the other two, the most sort of recent action item was that we need to reach out to the agencies. So I would propose just reaching out to the agencies and starting to run this down. It personally, to me, it would feel perhaps a little irresponsible to issue new budget requests when we have ones that are outstanding and have been outstanding for a little while. But I like everything. I'm very happy to talk this through and get the committee's thoughts on this.
Can you just explain under the PS 116.1, the fiscal year 24 response is the project was funded in a prior fiscal year and the construction contract has been let?
I wish I could. Yeah, that's part of why I reached out. I was like, so is this done? Is it, yeah, I don't know. My understanding when they say the construction contract has been let, it means that it's been opened.
Oh, so
I'm not sure, and I could be
like,
wrong,
like they've issued some sort of RFP,
and they're accepting bids for it.
yeah.
Stu's Googling, and I assume is gonna prove me wrong.
I thought that meant that but you know, John may know and he's here.
Which one?
Do you have an understanding what it means when, the fiscal year 2024 response says the project was funded in a prior fiscal year and the construction contract has been let? This is for the security system at PS 116.
That would imply that it's been done and we don't have to ask anymore.
Okay.
But that's how I would read that.
I reached out to some people at 116, to see the status of this. The upshot of what I just proposed, John, is that, we keep the current requests. We focus on running them down. Once they're completely closed out and feel good about it, we're confident that it's been resolved. We then issue new requests in the following fiscal year. We have some time on this. I think any new requests would be due September 30th. So there is a world where, you know, I furiously send some emails over the next couple months, maybe these get closed out. And we can revisit it, but I just want to sort of see if this general approach made sense to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does, because when I was chair of this committee, I did not pay enough attention to this, so I think it's good to be thinking ahead of this and on this and working towards it the way to go.
All right, well, thank you all, so I'll do that, and I'll keep you all apprised. Chair's report, I have nothing. Old or new business, if any member of the committee has any old or new business, please raise your hand.
I have just some old
Yeah,
business.
please.
I want to thank Kevin and John and all the members of this committee because all of the illegal cannabis shops on my block have been shuttered.
Wow.
And I went through my list that I had created here in CV6 and I think 95% of them are padlocked.
Wow,
So,
that's fantastic.
and yeah, in the words of Gerald Ford, our great national nightmare is somewhat over. I think
Oh my
that we've
gosh.
actually come out around, we've actually turned the corner on this, so I took like 10 or 15 pictures today of just all the different padlocked ones on my block. It was very,
Wow.
very entertaining.
That's
So, yeah, it was,
I'm sorry, all the padlock ones on your block?
yeah, I have a list
Yeah.
of all the ones, I have a list of all the ones in CV6.
I'm sorry, how many are on your block?
There's 6 on my block and there's 32 in CV6. And I've written down closed on all the ones that were closed, so I think we closed like 28 out of the 36.
Wow, that's a great statistic.
So, yeah,
What street do you? live on?
doing good work, 1126 and 3rd.
Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
clearly the place.
Right next to Baruch, which is why they all sit up there.
It's a big, yeah.
It's a college, I mean, yeah, I mean, so the sheriff's notice on one of them was great, they just ticked every single box, they were like
This is
selling to minors, unlicensed possessing, proximity to school, not tested and labeled, like, it was just like, great. this is
Thanks for pointing that out. I was actually walking that stretch today. You're absolutely right, especially on the west side of Third, but there's still the garden on the east side of Third, which is right across the street from a padlock place that was still doing business illegally today. So yeah, it's progress, but it's still a few steps to go, obviously. Thanks for pointing that out.
I I got two on my block that I wanna figure out how to turn in.
Yeah, you can submit them to the OCS, you know, if you call the hotline, they do take submissions, so. Or 311. And you know, now that the state actually has the right to do something about it,
Yeah,
they can actually go out and padlock the door
So,
and the nonsense.
that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, the city and the state, right? So,
Kieran, I see your hand is up and I saw you posted a few questions in the chat. I'm gonna try to answer these in turn. The short answers, unfortunately, I have no idea to all these and they're all good questions. Do you want to unmute, Kieran? And I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly.
No, that's right, Kieran. That's correct. Wait, hang on a second. Let's see.
Hi,
I
can
would
you hear me?
just, yep, we can hear you. I would just ask them to keep any questions to 30 seconds or less so we can get folks out by 8.
Yeah, so yeah, just because I'm a parent at PS40 and I'll be seeing more of you because I'm going to be on the Community Affairs Committee next year with the PTA. So one of our to be able to attend these meetings and check in with the school. I know like the last time I came to your meetings, it was when the one of the architects was talking about what the playground would look like. And I think the last time I spoke, it was left where somebody from your committee would check in with the DOE construction to try to make sure that the playground construction and the construction in the school did not go on simultaneously, so that way the children in the school would be locked out of both the PS40 playground and the roof, as well as the Augusta St. Gaudens playground. We have been told through Principal Felder that come September of next year, the construction for the school is going to be shutting down and using the basketball playground as a staging area. And so we were curious if you had known anything more, if that would take place for the July and August months as well. And then also an update for the overall renovations of the Augusta St. Gaudens playground.
Yeah, no, these are great questions and I really appreciate your diligence. I haven't heard anything, unfortunately. I'm a little out of the loop on the Augusta St. Gaudens playground. I wasn't aware. Do you have a?
Well, Kevin is here and I would think Kevin.
I was gonna say, we have a superstar for that.
I don't know about that, but I will jump in. I don't want to eat up too much time. The Parks Department, first of all, I would look on line. They're doing a better job of laying out timelines on all capital projects and including schematics. So if you haven't looked online, I would look there first. And then offline, if you want, I'd be happy to give you a point of contact on an update on that. I do deal with the Parks Department quite often. We also have a Parks, as you probably know, a Parks committee for CB6, and they have also addressed this topic.
Okay, yeah, I would love that contact information. That would help us.
I'll put it in the chat.
Also, especially because Principal Felder is also retiring at the end of the year, so there may be a bit of transition at our school as well.
That's good to know, and I really admire your engagement. It's fantastic. I mean, look forward to seeing more of you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, look on the pickleball court, right?
Oh, is that where I know you?
We got a pickleball star here, but yeah. I know, you're a star.
Oh,
Anyway.
thank you. Yeah, I can, do you want to put that information in the chat, or do you want me to just leave? I can put my email, if you want to just send it there, all the recess.
I'll just type mine in right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry to embarrass you about your pickleball prowess. We all know
Local celebrity.
it is true, right?
I don't know about that.
Well,
But at least I'm a pickleball person who advocates for the kids to be able to play and not just the adults.
I know that. That's great. Okay, there it is.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
I think we're at that wonderful time of the meeting where we're just waiting for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you all very much
Thank
for a
you.
fantastic meeting. Thank you very much. Brian, thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Incredible. Take care.
I'm really happy to do that on
Me too. It feels like if it didn't happen now, it wasn't gonna. Thank you.